Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the moves made by David Lammy this week to turn the tables on money laundering in London, as a senior Labour and Conservative politician make the case for really cracking down on the practice with an eye on the role of tax havens with the same practice. Lammy promised the end of kleptocracy. Is he going to achieve it? But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So, thought I'd kick this Sunday off with a bit of promising news before we return to the chaos, which is both British and international politics. There was a bit of movement on money laundering this last week, behind the most eye-catching news stories. May have missed it. It began actually with Margaret Hodge for Labour and Andrew Mitchell for the Conservatives, both of whom have served as government ministers. Andrew Mitchell quite, senior, for their respective parties, jointly calling for action to stop UK territories being involved in money laundering. Now, if you take British territories around the world into account, the UK is easily the money laundering capital of the world, and has been for a lot of years. And the level of tax avoidance that we enable is also second to none globally. Just to give some scale to the problem, it's believed that 40% of the entire world's dirty money goes through overseas territories and London. So the UK and its territories combined. And this wasn't a figure that's just come up with by some campaign that may or may not be getting things right. This was the figure that was given by the Conservative government earlier this year. Now, Labour want to deal with it, but of course it's going to face pressure. Hodge and Mitchell focused their appeal on open registers for offshore financial centres. Overseas territories and Crown dependencies have been lobbying for the government to dilute the proposals so that only certain people can demand to see these registers of corporate ownership. Remember how Robert Jenrick received huge donations for his leadership bid this year from a company that had no assets, so was clearly a shell company? Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Hodge and Mitchell have been saying that these offshore centres play a huge role in money laundering and helping crooks hide their illicit money, they say. And that the best way to deal with this is public registers. And there is reported to be cross-party support here. And a few days after the appeal from the Labour and Conservative stalwarts, the Foreign Office, on the eve of a summit between the government and these Crown dependencies and overseas territories, announced that it was standing firm on the commitment to have fully public registers. They were actually legislated, they were supposed to come in force a few years ago. There was going to be legislation, I think, with strong cross-party support. But then the government at the time, Conservative government, watered the measures down to make them voluntary. However, it seems that only 2 territories have actually complied. So the voluntary system has failed. Time for some teeth, which Labour have said they support. What remains to be seen is just how much pressure the UK government will put on these tax havens to clean up their act. But there is promising news on that related to something else. David Lammy, who of course runs the Foreign Office, has been busy closer to home as well. He announced this week that he'd frozen the assets and imposed travel bans on what he described as 3 kleptocrats. He said he was bringing the golden age of money laundering in the UK to an end. He had certainly spoken a lot about this in opposition. It seemed clear to me that it was going to be high up on his list of priorities. And I'll tell you what struck me this week. After Lamy announced his move. So Labour have introduced quite a few reforms since taking office this summer. There's been quite a few about turns on the previous government's positions on a lot of things. Comes as no surprise. There's a lot to fix. But what you mostly see is the government announced some major change in direction in one area or another. And it all sounds like progress. Oh, step in the right direction. But campaigners in that field will always go, yeah, this isn't enough. This is not nearly enough. Whether fairly or not, the view is, yeah, okay, step in the right direction, but not enough of a pace. And this could be said to apply around lots of issues, Brexit, poverty, housing, energy, investment, taxation, you name it. But when Lammy announced his asset seizures, anti-corruption campaigners reported that the moves were a major step. They weren't saying, oh, yeah, it's just tinkering. This is not very good, is it? We need much more than this. No, they looked at it and went, oh, okay, this is good. This might be a rare case of the government taking action where even campaigners have gone, right, this is promising. Basically, there's more than enough evidence that the Foreign Office under Lamy is very serious about tackling what he calls the kleptocracy. But that doesn't necessarily mean it will all be plain sailing. Obviously, wanting to do something and being able to do it are two different things. The government are going after people with the money to pursue legal challenges with the intention of at least slowing some things down. But lobbyists have also been working on the Treasury in order to drive a bit of a wedge between them and the Foreign Office over this, in order to dilute some measures down. And the Treasury are pretty good at watering things down, aren't they? Mind you, Reeves has also made it a bit of a mission to crack down on tax avoidance. And the thing is, the fight against money laundering and tax avoidance is basically the same one. Anything you can do to make one harder tends to work on the other as well. So hopefully they shouldn't stand much chance of dividing the government on this one. But after so many years of having governments, both Labour and Conservative, pretend that the problem just doesn't exist or somehow see some benefit in ignoring it, it's good to finally have one which not only acknowledges it, but is taking strong action. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.